Virgo, there is something about you that people cannot quite figure out. And honestly, that may be exactly why they keep looking. Because when people first see you, they think they understand what they are seeing. They make assumptions. They guess your age. They guess your life experience. They guess your personality. They guess what kind of person you are. And then somehow you surprise them. You say something they were not expecting. You react in a way they did not anticipate. You reveal a level of wisdom that does not match the image they created of you. And suddenly, people are forced to reconsider everything they thought they knew. Because Virgo, you have something that creates a very unusual contradiction. You can look younger than your experiences. You can look softer than your strength. You can look innocent while carrying an incredible amount of awareness. You can appear calm while noticing absolutely everything happening around you. And this combination has shocked people more than you realize. There may be people who have looked at you and immediately assumed that you were younger than you actually are. They may have thought you were inexperienced. They may have thought that you were still figuring life out. They may have assumed that you were easy to impress. They may have believed that you were someone who could be manipulated with simple words and temporary attention. And then they interacted with you, and suddenly the entire image changed because you said something, you noticed something, you understood something, you recognized something, and they realized that they had completely underestimated you. That is one of the strongest energies around you, Virgo. People may see your appearance before they understand your mind. They may see your face before they understand your experiences. They may see your style before they understand your discipline. They may see your calmness before they understand what you have survived. And when they finally discover the depth behind the appearance, they are often shocked because you may have one of those faces that makes people guess an age completely wrong. You may look younger than people expect. You may have a youthful energy. You may still have something playful about you. You may laugh easily when you feel comfortable. You may enjoy things that people associate with a younger version of yourself. And yet, at the same time, there is something extremely mature about the way you think, something observant, something analytical, something that makes people realize you have probably learned more than you openly discuss. And this is where people become confused. They look at you and think, there is no way this person has been through that much. Then they hear your story. They hear the way you explain things. They hear the way you analyze human behavior. They hear the way you describe what you have learned. And suddenly they realize that your appearance does not tell the entire story. You may have been underestimated because of the way you look, and perhaps at one point that used to bother you. Maybe you felt that people did not take you seriously. Maybe people assumed you were inexperienced. Maybe they spoke to you in a way they would not speak to someone they considered older or more established. Maybe you had to prove yourself repeatedly. Maybe you had to show people that your appearance was not an accurate measurement of your intelligence. And over time, you learned something. You learned that being underestimated can actually become an advantage. Because when people think they already understand you, they reveal themselves. They become comfortable. They stop being careful. They assume you are not paying attention. And meanwhile, Virgo, you are observing everything. The words, the tone, the pauses, the contradictions, the little details that other people miss. You may not always react immediately. That is another thing people misunderstand about you. They may think that because you are quiet, you did not notice. They may think that because you did not confront them, you did not understand. They may think that because you smiled, everything was fine. But Virgo, sometimes you are simply collecting information. You are watching, you are processing, you are allowing people to reveal themselves. And by the time you finally say something, you may already know far more than they realize. This is why certain people have been shocked by you. They may have expected someone much more naive. Instead, they encountered someone who could see straight through the situation. They may have expected you to be easily impressed. Instead, you noticed the lack of effort. They may have expected you to accept the first explanation they gave you. Instead, you remembered what they had said before. They may have expected you to forget. Instead, you remembered every detail. And Virgo, that is the thing about you. You remember. You may not constantly talk about the past. You may not bring up every mistake someone has ever made. You may not keep announcing what you know, but you remember. And sometimes people become very uncomfortable when they realize that the person they underestimated has been paying attention the entire time. There may be someone who recently discovered that you are much older than they originally thought. Or perhaps they discovered that you are younger than they assumed. Either way, the reaction may have been the same. Shock, confusion, surprise. They may have looked at you and thought, wait, how old are you? And when they found out, they may have needed a moment to process it. Because your energy does not necessarily match the number people expect. You may have an unusual combination of youthful appearance and mature thinking. Or perhaps you have a mature appearance with a much more playful, youthful spirit. Either way, there is something about you that does not fit neatly into the category people place you in. And people are fascinated by what they cannot easily categorize. They want to understand you. They want to know how old you are. They want to know what you have experienced. They want to know how you became so calm. They want to know why you seem so youthful despite everything you have lived through. They want to know why you seem so mature despite having such a playful side. And sometimes, Virgo, they may even ask other people about you. They may say things like, how old are they? Where did they learn to think like that? Why do they look so young? Why do they seem so mature? Why do they act like they have already seen everything? There may be conversations about you that you know nothing about. People may compare their perception of you with the reality of who you are. And the more they discover, the more surprised they become. Because perhaps you do not look like what you have been through. You may have experienced disappointments that would have changed many people permanently. You may have gone through periods of loneliness. You may have had to grow up emotionally faster than you wanted. You may have learned lessons through situations that forced you to become more independent. You may have had to figure things out without receiving the support you expected. And yet, somehow, you still have something youthful about you. You still have curiosity. You still have dreams. You still have the ability to get excited about certain things. You still have a side of yourself that wants to laugh, explore, enjoy life, and experience something new. And that is beautiful because some people allow difficult experiences to destroy their ability to enjoy anything. But you may have learned how to carry your wisdom without allowing it to completely remove your joy. That is rare, and people notice it. Someone may be attracted to you because they see this contradiction. They may look at you and think, this person has a youthful appearance, but there is something ancient about their mind. Not literally, but emotionally, there is something about the way you understand people, the way you recognize patterns, the way you know when something is not right, the way you can be in a room and immediately sense when the energy has changed, the way you can listen to someone speak and realize that the words are not matching the intention. You may not have a degree in psychology. You may not have studied human behavior professionally, but life has taught you. People have taught you. Experience has taught you. And perhaps you have become very good at recognizing patterns. You know when someone is being genuine. You know when someone is performing. You know when someone is trying to impress you. You know when someone is trying to manipulate you. You know when someone is hiding something. And sometimes people are shocked when you reveal that you knew. They may say, how did you know? And you may not even know how to explain it. You simply noticed. You felt that something was different. You heard the change in their voice. You noticed the timing. You remembered something they said before. You connected the dots. And suddenly, the answer became obvious. This is why some people may find you intimidating. Not because you are trying to be intimidating. Not because you are walking around trying to make people uncomfortable, but because you notice too much. People feel exposed around someone who pays attention, especially people who are used to being able to hide behind charm. Someone may have initially been attracted to your appearance. They may have noticed your face, your eyes, your smile, your body language, your style, the way you carry yourself. Perhaps they thought you were beautiful or handsome. Perhaps they thought you had a youthful appearance. Perhaps they thought you were naturally attractive without trying too hard. But then they spoke to you, and that is when the attraction became deeper. Because suddenly they realized that there was something behind the appearance. You were not just visually appealing, you were interesting, you were unpredictable in a very specific way. You could be extremely serious one moment and surprisingly funny the next. You could discuss something deeply philosophical and then make a completely ridiculous joke. You could appear reserved and then suddenly reveal a personality that nobody expected. And that contrast may be one of the reasons people remember you. You are not easily forgotten, not because you are always the loudest person in the room. In fact, you may sometimes be one of the quieter people, but there is something about your presence. People remember the way you made them feel. They remember conversations with you. They remember the moment you said something that stayed in their mind. They remember your expression. They remember the way you looked at them when you already knew they were not telling the truth. They remember your sense of humor. They remember the unexpected side of you. And someone may still be thinking about you because they never fully understood how one person could be so many different things at once. You can be sweet, but you can also be brutally honest. You can be kind, but you can also become completely unavailable when you have had enough. You can be patient, but you can also suddenly reach a point where you say, no more. You can be incredibly understanding, but you are not necessarily easy to fool. And that is the difference. People may confuse your kindness with weakness. They may confuse your patience with ignorance. They may confuse your softness with a lack of boundaries. And then one day they discover that you have been aware of everything. That is when the shock happens. Because, Virgo, you may have a very specific way of surprising people. You do not always announce your strength. You do not always tell people what you are capable of. You may allow them to think they have you figured out. And then, when the moment comes, you reveal a side of yourself they never expected. Maybe you suddenly become incredibly direct. Maybe you make a decision that shocks everyone. Maybe you leave a situation without explaining yourself 10 times. Maybe you completely transform your appearance. Maybe you change your lifestyle. Maybe you reinvent yourself. Maybe you disappear for a while and return, looking completely different. And people think, what happened? But you know what happened. You evolved. You reached a point where the old version of you no longer felt comfortable. And Virgo, people may be shocked by how much you can change when you make up your mind. You may spend months thinking, months observing, months considering your options, and then suddenly you make a decision. Once you decide, it can be very difficult to stop you. This is another aspect of you that people may not expect based on your appearance. They may assume you are indecisive. They may assume that because you think carefully, you are weak. But there is a difference between taking time to decide and being unable to decide. You may simply refuse to make impulsive decisions. You want to understand the consequences. You want to consider every possibility. You want to know what you are getting yourself into. And once you have thought about something thoroughly, you can become extremely determined. People may be shocked when they realize how stubborn you actually are. You may look sweet, you may look young, you may look harmless, but once your mind is made up, good luck trying to convince you to return to a situation you have already mentally left. And this may be especially true in relationships. Someone may have assumed that because you cared about them, they could always return. They may have assumed that you would always be available. They may have assumed that your feelings would remain exactly the same forever. But they may have forgotten something. You observe, you remember, you learn, and every interaction changes your understanding of the situation. So while someone may think they are still dealing with the same version of you, you may have already changed internally. You may have already processed the relationship. You may have already analyzed what happened. You may have already asked yourself whether the connection is actually good for you. And by the time the other person realizes that something has changed, you may already be emotionally far away. That is why someone may be shocked by your behavior. They may say, "You are different." And you may think, "Yes, because you are." You are not required to remain the same person simply because someone became comfortable with an older version of you. And perhaps this is something you are currently experiencing. People may be noticing a transformation. Your appearance may be changing. Your style may be changing. Your confidence may be changing. Your energy may be changing. You may be taking better care of yourself. You may be paying more attention to your health. You may be changing your hair, your clothes, your body, your routine, your environment. And the more you change externally, the more people may begin to notice the internal transformation. Perhaps you have stopped trying to look like what other people expect. Perhaps you are finally embracing what feels natural to you. Perhaps you are becoming more comfortable in your own appearance, and confidence can change a person's entire face. It can change the way you stand, the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you look at people. Sometimes the biggest transformation is not the face itself, it is the energy behind it. And Virgo, your energy may be becoming more confident, more selective, more independent, more difficult to access. You may not be seeking validation in the same way you once did. You may no longer need everyone to understand you. You may no longer feel the need to prove your worth, and that can make you even more attractive. Because people are naturally drawn to someone who is not desperately trying to be chosen. There may be someone who has noticed this, someone who remembers what you were like before, and now they are looking at you thinking, what happened? Maybe you seem happier. Maybe you seem healthier. Maybe you seem more confident. Maybe you seem younger. Maybe you seem more peaceful. And they may wonder whether you have discovered something they do not know. The answer may be simple. You may have stopped carrying things that were never yours to carry. You may have stopped allowing other people's opinions to control your identity. You may have stopped trying to convince people who had already decided to misunderstand you. And when a person stops carrying emotional weight, it shows. It shows in the face. It shows in the eyes. It shows in the posture. It shows in the way they move through the world. Perhaps that is why people are shocked by your age. You may have an energy that feels younger because you are not constantly living inside old pain. Or perhaps you have an energy that feels older because you have already learned lessons that others are only beginning to face. Either way, people may have trouble placing you, and that is a good thing. You do not need to fit neatly into someone's expectations. You do not need to look your age. You do not need to act your age. You do not need to explain why you enjoy certain things. You do not need to prove that your personality is consistent every single day. You are allowed to have different sides. You are allowed to be serious and silly, mature and playful, reserved and expressive, independent and affectionate, confident and uncertain. People sometimes believe that a person must be one thing, but you are not one thing. And perhaps that is why people become fascinated with you. They think they have figured you out. Then you reveal something new. They think they know your personality. Then you say something unexpected. They think you are quiet. Then they discover your sense of humor. They think you are serious. Then you make them laugh. They think you are innocent. Then they realize that you understand far more than you ever said. They think you are confident. Then they discover that you also have a deeply sensitive side. And perhaps that complexity is what makes you unforgettable. Someone may have been thinking about a specific moment with you. Maybe you said something that seemed casual to you, but it stayed with them. Maybe you gave them advice. Maybe you made a joke. Maybe you responded to a situation in a way they did not expect. Maybe they thought you would react emotionally, but you remained calm. Maybe they thought you would be impressed, but you were not. Maybe they thought they could manipulate you, but you immediately recognized what was happening. And that moment may have changed their perception of you. They may have realized that your appearance had caused them to make assumptions. And now they may be thinking about you differently. They may be wondering what else they got wrong. They may be wondering what you are really like when you are completely comfortable. They may be wondering what you have experienced They may be wondering what kind of person you become when you truly trust someone. And this curiosity can become powerful because people are often most attracted to what they cannot fully understand. If someone can predict you completely, the mystery disappears. But, Virgo, you may be difficult to predict, not because you are trying to be mysterious, simply because you contain contradictions. You may have routines, but you also have spontaneous moments. You may be organized, but your mind can be full of unexpected ideas. You may be practical, but you can still dream. You may be cautious, but when you truly want something, you can take enormous risks. You may be independent, but you still desire deep connection. You may be analytical, but your emotions can be extremely intense. People may not always see the intensity because you know how to control your expression, but that does not mean you do not feel deeply. In fact, you may feel more than people realize. You may simply refuse to give everyone access to that part of you. And that is another reason why someone may be shocked by you. They may see your public personality, but the private version of you is completely different. The version of you that exists with people you trust may be much more playful, much more affectionate, much more expressive, much more emotional, and someone may feel extremely special when they discover that side of you because they realize that not everyone gets to see it. There may be someone who is thinking about the version of you that they were allowed to know. They may remember your laugh, your jokes, the way you behaved when you were comfortable, the way you looked at them, the way you opened up, and they may compare that version of you with the version that the rest of the world sees. They may realize that you gave them access to something special, and perhaps they did not appreciate it at the time. This is where regret may exist. Someone may have underestimated you. They may have assumed that because you were there, you would always be there. They may have assumed that your attention was guaranteed. They may have assumed that you would never change. And now they are seeing that you have changed. You look different. You feel different. You carry yourself differently. And they may be wondering whether they still have any place in your life. The shocking part may be that you look better than ever. Not necessarily because you have changed every physical feature, but because you are carrying yourself differently. You may be taking up more space. You may be making eye contact more confidently. You may be smiling more genuinely. You may be dressing in a way that feels more authentic. You may be showing parts of yourself that you once tried to hide. And people are noticing. Someone may have seen a recent photo of you. They may have encountered you unexpectedly. They may have seen you from a distance. And their reaction may have been immediate. Wow, they may not have expected you to look like that. They may not have expected you to appear so youthful, so confident, so different, so attractive. And perhaps they are now questioning whether they made a mistake by not appreciating you properly. There is something powerful about realizing someone's value after they stop seeking your approval. And Virgo, you may be entering a period where you are no longer trying to convince anyone of anything. You are not trying to prove that you are attractive. You are not trying to prove that you are intelligent. You are not trying to prove that you are mature. You are not trying to prove that you are worthy. You are simply existing. And the more comfortable you become with yourself, the more people notice. Because authenticity is attractive. When you are no longer performing, people can feel the difference. You are not trying to appear younger. You are not trying to appear older. You are simply being yourself. And that may be exactly what makes your appearance so difficult for people to place. You have your own energy, your own style, your own way of moving, your own way of speaking, and perhaps you do not fit the typical expectations associated with your age. You may be more mature than people expect, or more playful, more ambitious, more independent, more curious, more unconventional, and people may be surprised because they expect age to determine personality. But you do not necessarily follow that pattern. You may have been young and forced to think like an adult, or you may be older and still have an incredibly youthful spirit. Both are possible, and both can make people curious about you. There may be someone who has recently discovered your age and is now looking at everything about you differently. They may be thinking about the way you speak, the way you dress, the way you interact with people, the things you know, the things you have experienced, and they may be realizing that they miscalculated you completely. Perhaps they thought you were much younger because of your appearance. Then they discovered that you had lived through experiences that made you much wiser than expected. Or perhaps they thought you were older because of your serious expression and calm personality. Then they discovered a playful, funny, almost mischievous side that completely surprised them. Either way, the reaction is similar. You are not what they expected. And people remember that. They remember people who challenge their assumptions. They remember people who force them to rethink their first impression. And Virgo, you may be one of those people. Your first impression may not be your complete impression. Someone may look at you and see one thing. Then, over time, they discover another, and another, and another. That is why people may become emotionally attached to you. They keep discovering new layers. They may think they have reached the end of the story. Then you reveal something else, a new goal, a new interest, a new perspective, a new side of your personality, a new level of confidence, and suddenly they are interested again. This is especially powerful in romantic situations. Someone may have initially been attracted to your appearance, then they became attracted to your mind, then your humor, then your emotional depth, then your independence, and before they realize it, they are thinking about you far more than they intended, because you are not just visually memorable, you are mentally memorable. People may remember conversations with you long after they have forgotten conversations with other people. They may remember your opinions, your observations, your strange jokes, your unexpected reactions, the way you challenged them, the way you made them think. And perhaps someone is currently realizing that they did not appreciate how rare your personality was. They may have been surrounded by people who were easy to understand, people who said exactly what they thought, people who behaved predictably. And then there was you, someone who could be calm one day and incredibly energetic the next. Someone who could be serious about your goals but completely ridiculous with the right person. Someone who could be incredibly loyal but completely detached after betrayal. Someone who could care deeply but still walk away. That combination is not easy to forget. And perhaps you have been wondering why certain people continue to return to your life, why they keep checking on you, why they continue to ask about you, why they remember things you thought they had forgotten. why they seem curious about what you are doing now, the answer may be that you made an impression, not just through your appearance, through your presence. And your presence may be stronger than you realize. You may think you are just being yourself, but someone else may be thinking about you days later, weeks later, months later. They may wonder what you are doing, whether you have changed, whether you are seeing someone, whether you are happier, whether you still remember them. And perhaps they are especially curious because you are not easy to read. You may not reveal everything online. You may not tell everyone your plans. You may not constantly show your personal life. You may have become more private. And when people cannot see everything, their imagination fills in the gap. They start wondering, they start guessing, they start thinking about you. And Virgo, sometimes mystery is not something you create intentionally. It is simply the result of not giving everyone complete access to your life. You do not owe the world constant updates. You do not need to explain every change. You do not need to prove that you are happy. You do not need to show people what you are working on before it is finished. And perhaps your privacy is making you even more interesting. People may notice that you have disappeared from certain spaces. They may notice that you are not as available. They may notice that you no longer react to everything. And they may begin to wonder what is happening. Maybe you are growing. Maybe you are healing. Maybe you are focusing on yourself. Maybe you are preparing for something new. Maybe you are simply tired of being accessible to people who did not value your presence. Whatever the reason, the effect is the same. People notice when Virgo becomes quiet because your silence is not always empty. Sometimes your silence means something is changing, and perhaps something is changing now. You may be entering a period where people are seeing you differently. They may be noticing your appearance more. They may be commenting on how young you look, how different you seem, how much more confident you appear, how your energy has changed. And perhaps this is happening because you are finally becoming comfortable with the person you have always been. You do not have to look a certain age. You do not have to act a certain age. You do not have to follow the timeline that society created for you. You are allowed to evolve at your own pace. You are allowed to look different from what people expect. You are allowed to be more mature than your age. You are allowed to be more youthful than your age. You are allowed to be both. And perhaps that is your secret. You have a rare ability to carry your experiences without allowing them to completely destroy your curiosity about life. You can be wise without becoming bitter. You can be cautious without becoming closed. You can be mature without becoming boring. You can be playful without becoming irresponsible. And people may be shocked by that balance because most people expect one extreme or the other. They expect someone to be either extremely serious or extremely carefree, but you may move between both worlds. And the right people find that fascinating. The wrong people may find it confusing. They may want to put you in a box. They may want to decide who you are. But every time they think they have you figured out, you remind them that you are not a category. You are a person, and people are complicated. You can change. You can grow. You can surprise yourself. You can become someone completely different from who you were 5 years ago. And if people are shocked by your age or appearance, perhaps they are really being shocked by the fact that you refuse to be defined by one version of yourself. There may also be a deeper reason why people are so surprised by your appearance. You may have a natural ability to preserve your energy. You may not allow every experience to show on your face. You may have learned how to recover. You may have learned how to take care of yourself. You may have learned that stress is not something you want to carry forever. And perhaps you are beginning to understand that your appearance is connected to your emotional environment. When you are surrounded by chaos, you feel it. When you are constantly worried, it shows. When you are carrying resentment, it affects you. But when you begin to release what is not yours, something changes. Your face relaxes. Your eyes become brighter. Your expression becomes lighter. Your energy becomes more youthful. And people may notice. They may not know what changed. They may not know what you let go of, but they can see that something is different. Perhaps you have recently left a stressful situation. Perhaps you have stopped speaking to someone who constantly drained you. Perhaps you have stopped trying to win the approval of people who were impossible to satisfy. Perhaps you have finally accepted that not every relationship needs to be saved. And now you look lighter. You may not feel completely healed. You may still have difficult days. But there is a difference between being wounded and allowing the wound to define your entire identity. And perhaps you are no longer allowing old experiences to define you. That is why your appearance may be shocking people. Not because you have discovered some magical secret, because you are becoming more yourself. And the more yourself you become, the more powerful your presence becomes. Someone may look at you and realize that they never truly saw you before. They may have been too focused on their own assumptions. They may have judged you too quickly. They may have believed that your appearance told them everything, and now they are realizing that they were wrong. You are deeper, more complex, more experienced, more intelligent, more emotionally aware, more unpredictable, more interesting, and perhaps someone is thinking about this right now. They may be comparing the person they thought you were with the person you actually are, and the difference may be enormous. Maybe they thought you needed them. Now they see that you do not. Maybe they thought you were insecure. Now they see your confidence. Maybe they thought you would always wait. Now they see you moving forward. Maybe they thought your appearance meant you were easy to understand. Now they realize that your mind is far more complicated than they expected. And perhaps this realization is making them curious about you again. They may want to know what changed. They may want to know whether they still have access to you. They may want to know whether you still think about them. But Virgo, you do not have to go backward simply because someone finally recognizes your value. You do not have to return to people who only appreciate you after losing access to you. Let them realize, let them think, let them wonder. Your growth does not need to become an invitation. You can enjoy being recognized without needing to be chosen by the person who once underestimated you. That is important because sometimes people return when they see you doing better. They may suddenly notice your beauty, your confidence, your energy, your youthfulness, your success. But ask yourself why they are returning now? Are they genuinely interested in who you are becoming? Or are they simply uncomfortable with the fact that you are no longer available in the same way? You do not have to answer immediately. Observe. That is what you do best. Observe. Let people reveal themselves. And remember, your appearance is only one part of your power. The real shock is what people discover once they get close enough to know your mind. They may expect you to be one way, and then you completely surprise them. They may expect you to be easy to impress, and then you ask questions they cannot answer. They may expect you to follow the crowd, and then you make your own decision. They may expect you to remain stuck in the past, and then you transform. They may expect you to need validation, and then you become completely comfortable with your own approval. That is the real transformation. You are becoming someone who does not need to explain every part of yourself, and that is incredibly attractive because the people who are meant to understand you will take the time. They will not judge you based on one conversation. They will not define you by your age. They will not assume your appearance tells them your entire story. They will become curious. They will ask questions. They will listen. They will allow you to reveal yourself naturally. And those are the people who deserve access to the deeper version of you, not the people who demand immediate explanations, not the people who criticize what they do not understand, not the people who make you feel like you have to prove your worth. You are not here to convince everyone. Some people will misunderstand you. Some people will underestimate you. Some people will assume that they know you based on your appearance, and that is okay. Their assumptions are not your responsibility. You do not have to shrink yourself to make people comfortable. You do not have to act older to be taken seriously. You do not have to act younger to be accepted. You do not have to change your appearance to fit someone else's expectations. You are allowed to be exactly as complex as you are. And perhaps that is why people are so shocked, because they expect age to tell them who you are. But age is only one detail. Appearance is only one detail. The real you is found in your experiences, your choices, your reactions, your values, your sense of humor, your boundaries, your dreams, your ability to continue becoming someone new. And Virgo, you may be entering a phase where people are finally seeing more of that. They may be shocked by how much you have changed. They may be shocked by how young you look. They may be shocked by how mature you think. They may be shocked by how attractive you have become. They may be shocked by how confident you are. But most importantly, they may be shocked by the fact that you are no longer waiting for permission to become yourself. That is the real headline. You are becoming comfortable with your own identity. And when a person reaches that point, other people's opinions lose some of their power. You may still appreciate compliments. You may still enjoy being admired. You may still care about how you present yourself, but you are no longer dependent on external validation. You know who you are, and if someone is surprised by that, they can take their time adjusting because you are not going backward just to make their expectations more comfortable. You are moving forward, and perhaps the person who once underestimated you is now realizing that you were far more valuable than they understood. Maybe they thought you would always be available. Maybe they thought you would always look the same. Maybe they thought you would always remain emotionally connected to them. But life has changed you. You have changed yourself. And now they may be looking at you thinking, who is this person? And the answer is simple. This is still you. You are just no longer hiding as much of yourself. You are no longer apologizing for your personality. You are no longer trying to fit into the version people created for you. You are no longer allowing one difficult experience to define your entire life. You are no longer afraid of becoming different. And that is why people are shocked, because they are seeing the version of you that existed beneath the assumptions. The version that was always there, the intelligent one, the funny one, the observant one, the beautiful one, the mysterious one, the mature one, the playful one, the sensitive one, the strong one, all of them. You are not one version. You are all of them. And perhaps that is what makes you so difficult to forget. People may not remember every detail of your appearance, but they remember the feeling of being around you. They remember the surprise. They remember the contradictions. They remember the moment they realized they had underestimated you. They remember the moment you said something that revealed how much you understood. They remember the moment you walked away. They remember the moment you changed. And someone may be thinking about that moment now. They may be looking at you from a distance and wondering how you became this version of yourself. They may be shocked by your age. They may be shocked by your appearance. They may be shocked by your confidence. But underneath all of that, they may simply be realizing that they never truly understood who they were dealing with. Virgo, you are not as easy to define as people think. You may look one way and think another. You may feel one thing and show another. You may appear calm while experiencing intense emotions. You may appear young while carrying years of wisdom. You may appear serious while having a deeply playful soul, and that is okay. You do not need to simplify yourself for people who are too impatient to understand complexity. The right people will be curious. They will want to know you. They will not rush to label you. They will not assume that your appearance tells them everything. They will allow you to surprise them. And Virgo, you will continue surprising people. Your appearance may change. Your style may change. Your age will continue to change. Your life will continue to change. But the most important thing is that you continue becoming more comfortable with who you are. Because there is a point where you stop asking, do people think I look good? And you start asking, do I feel good being myself? There is a point where you stop asking, do people understand me? And you start asking, do I understand myself? There is a point where you stop trying to look like what people expect and you start looking like the person you actually want to become. That is the energy around you. And perhaps someone is noticing, someone may be shocked by how different you seem. Someone may be shocked by how young you look. Someone may be shocked by how mature you are. Someone may be shocked by how much confidence you have developed. And perhaps they are realizing that the version of you they once knew is no longer the only version that exists. You have grown. You have evolved. You have learned. You have changed. And you are still changing. So let them be surprised. Let them wonder. Let them ask questions. Let them discover that you are not what they assumed. You do not need to reveal everything immediately. You do not need to explain every layer. You do not need to prove that you are more than your appearance. The people who matter will eventually discover it. And when they do, they may understand why you have always been difficult to forget. Because you have something that cannot be captured by a number, something that cannot be measured by your appearance, something that cannot be explained by your age. You have presence, you have depth, you have an unusual combination of wisdom and youthfulness. You have the ability to surprise people, and perhaps, Virgo, that is your greatest advantage. People think they know what they are looking at. Then you speak, you think, you react, you grow, you transform. And suddenly they realize they were only looking at the surface. There is so much more underneath. So if people have been shocked by your age, your looks, your personality, or the way you carry yourself, do not be surprised. They may simply be discovering what you have always known. You are not easy to define. You are not easy to predict. You are not easy to forget. And the more you become yourself, the more obvious that becomes. Someone may have underestimated you. Someone may have misjudged you. Someone may have thought they understood you, but now they may be looking again. And this time they are seeing something different. They are seeing the person beneath the assumptions, the person beneath the appearance, the person beneath the age, the person beneath the first impression. And perhaps their reaction is simple. Wow, because they never expected you to be this interesting. They never expected you to be this wise. They never expected you to be this funny. They never expected you to be this attractive. They never expected you to change so much. They never expected you to become someone they could no longer easily access. And perhaps that is what shocks them the most. Not your age, not your looks, not your style. Your evolution. You became someone they did not expect. And Virgo, you are allowed to keep becoming someone unexpected. You are allowed to surprise people. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to change your style. You are allowed to change your life. You are allowed to become younger in spirit, older in wisdom, softer in some ways, stronger in others. You are allowed to be complicated. You are allowed to be contradictory. You are allowed to be more than one thing. And if someone cannot understand that, they may simply not be capable of seeing beyond the surface. But the right people will the right people will notice the way your mind works. The way you observe, the way you remember, the way you care, the way you protect yourself, the way you make people laugh, the way you become completely different when you feel safe. And those people will not be shocked by your complexity. They will appreciate it. They will understand that your appearance is only the beginning. Your age is only a number. Your first impression is only the introduction. The real story is everything that comes after. And Virgo, your story is still unfolding. There are still people who have not yet met the version of you that you are becoming. There are still places where your presence will surprise people. There are still situations where you will be underestimated before proving exactly who you are. And there are still people who will look at you and think they know what they are seeing. Until you speak, until you smile, until you reveal your mind, until they discover your humor, until they see your strength, until they realize that behind the appearance is someone far more complex than they expected. So let them be shocked. Let them guess your age incorrectly. Let them misunderstand you for a moment. You do not have to rush to correct every assumption. Sometimes people need to experience you before they understand you. And perhaps that is why you leave such a strong impression. You cannot be fully understood from a distance. You have to be experienced. And once someone experiences the real you, they may never look at you the same way again, because they realize that you are not simply what you look like. You are not simply the age you are. You are not simply the first impression you give. You are a collection of experiences, contradictions, lessons, dreams, wounds, humor, intelligence, sensitivity, and strength. And all of those things exist together. That is what makes you different. That is what makes you memorable. That is what makes people curious. And that is why someone may be shocked by you right now. They thought they knew. They were wrong. And perhaps, Virgo, they are finally realizing that they should have looked deeper from the beginning. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to support the channel by liking, subscribing, and sharing your thoughts below. If people have ever guessed your age completely wrong, or if someone has ever been shocked by your personality after making assumptions about you, you already understand exactly what this message is about. Sometimes people only discover the real you after they have already created an entire story about you in their minds. And perhaps that is the lesson here. Never allow someone else's first impression to become your identity. You know who you are. You know what you have lived through. You know how much you have grown. You know the sides of yourself that people do not see. And you do not need to reveal all of them to everyone. The people who are meant to know you will take the time. They will look beyond the surface. They will become curious about the person behind the appearance. They will understand that your age does not tell your entire story, and your looks do not tell your entire story either. There is a whole world inside you that people only discover when you allow them close enough. And once they discover it, they may never forget you. So, Virgo, let them be shocked. Let them wonder how you look so young. Let them wonder how you became so wise. Let them wonder why you are so difficult to understand. Let them wonder why you are so difficult to forget. You do not need to explain the mystery. You simply need to keep becoming more of yourself, because the greatest surprise is not that people cannot guess your age. The greatest surprise is that they thought they could ever fully figure you out, and they are about to discover that they were wrong.